Welcome to episode 49 of the DX Mentor. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill, age 8B. Today we'll be meeting with Elmar, DF4GV. Elmar joined us last winter to talk about their upcoming DXpedition to T32EU, Kiritimati Island. He has graciously agreed to meet with us again to recap the DXpedition and the overall general feeling as he's gotten back. You can watch the initial meeting with Elmar by checking out episode 32 in the back catalog. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. We have a back catalog of over 40 episodes covering many aspects of DX in both podcast and YouTube format. Please check us out. If you're new to DXing, I would really recommend episode 1 as it was recorded with several world-class DXers. You will get a feel of the excitement that goes with chasing DX. Remember, if you like what you find, please subscribe, like, and share. I received several emails this week. The first was from Charles, 5 Hotel 3 Delta X-Ray, who was our guest on episode 44. He was about to head to Africa and kindly shared some time with us. Here's what Charles had to say. Bill, I thought I would drop a note to follow up on my trip to Tanzania. I honestly did not have much operating time, but I did get my gear out of mothballs and check things out. The KX3 and amplifier survived its 4 years of storage. The container was cracked, but aside from some nasty calcium chloride dried on the clothing and towels, the equipment was unscathed. I operated FT8 from my hotel room, running 50 watts to a short tactical antenna. Remarkably good results, all things considered. For FT8, I generally had a good QSO rate of about 1 per minute. I did not operate F Foxhound mode at all. I called CQ on CW several times, but I never got a response. That really wasn't a surprise. It was only possible to operate a couple hours overall, but I did manage 324 QSOs in the log. Everything has been uploaded to LOTW, and I have had a few requests for cards. 7 threes, and that's from Charles, 5 Hotel 3 DX/NK80/V31ISD. Well, thanks, Charles, for that update, and again, for taking some time out of your valuable schedule to drop us a note and keep us in the loop. I look forward to that again. From Brian, VE3GMZ, I received the following. Hey, Bill, I followed your advice on one of your podcasts and broke a big pile up with 5 watts CW and an NFET half-wave antenna using my IC705. I went split and went up a bit. Second try, I changed frequency a bit more and I got him. Tango Oscar 8 Fox Papa. It was fun. Thanks. 7-3 from Brian, VE3GMZ. Thanks, Brian. As Joe always says, they have to hear you to work you. Well done. And I'm glad something we passed along worked out. Please let us know what's working in the future and how you're progressing up the DX ladder. From Ken, KX9U, I received the following. Hey, Bill, really enjoyed meeting you at the Cincinnati Hamfest. As I told you, the DX Mentor is one of my favorite ham radio podcasts. I think you and Joe do a great job of verity and good banter, and I always learn something. I've been in the radio game since 1974 and still learn something every day. I also enjoy reading the Swadexa newsletter. I really enjoy the QRP column. That's my world. First met Joe 40 years ago and still the same as he was then. It was so enjoyable to renew our friendship in the last year. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to every episode. 7-3 and all the best. And that was from Ken, KX9U. Well, Ken, thanks very much for the comments. And he mentioned the Swadexa newsletter, and that is a newsletter that the Southwest Ohio DX Association puts out. And you can get to it by going to swodxa.org, click on the newsletter link, and then just go to that page. And you can pull down 7 years worth or just the most recent one. So Ken, thanks again. And you know what I always say, any friend of Joe's, well, you know. Finally, from Howard, N8HO, I received the following. Hello, Bill. It's taken me the best part of a year to confirm 9 Mike 6 TMT East Malaysia, and that's an all-time new one for me. It's number 309 confirmed. I really enjoyed the podcast with Dave, AA6YQ. And that was from Howard, N8HO. Well, Howard, congratulations on that, and thanks for keeping us in the loop. Please stay in touch. Ironically, I got East and West Malaysia about 2 weeks apart at the end of last year. So they're out there, and with sunspots as they are now, it's the time to get them, because 2 years from now, you may not hear them. 3 years. Anyway, thanks again. Anyone can send us your comments, achievements, and activities by emailing me at thedxmentor@gmail.com. Elmar was kind enough to allow me to post the slides on the web that we're about to discuss so that you could pull them down and follow along if you wish to. It's not needed on the podcast side, but it's always helpful. You can access them by going to ajb.com, clicking on the DX Mentor podcast menu pick, and then selecting the T32EU slides. So without any further delay, let's get started.
We flew to Kiritimati, as everybody pronounces it here, but it's pronounced Kirismas, as you know, or it's in Kiribati, the state. We flew to the island mid-March. We left Germany on the 11th. Actually, we started on the 10th. We drove to the airport, met the group there, stayed overnight at the airport, and then flew off next day. It was a Monday from Frankfurt. That brought us through, I flew from Frankfurt to Vancouver and then to Honolulu, and the rest of the group flew from Frankfurt to San Francisco to Honolulu. That was because I had at risk booked very early, and by the time the others booked the flights through Vancouver, which are particularly attractive, were simply booked out. Anyway, we all made it to to Honolulu. However, 2 suitcases didn't make it. They got stuck in San Francisco. So since the flight was then next morning, I think at 7 or so, the suitcases didn't make it into San Francisco, into Honolulu. So we left Honolulu without the 2 suitcases. And as there's only 1 flight per week to Kirismas, you know what that means. So yes. We were looking forward to receiving the missing suitcase in a week's time, including equipment and antenna stuff that we had in the suitcase. So when we arrived on the island, we had to figure out how we work around it.
Wow.
So when we arrived to the hotel, it was called the Village Hotel. Actually, it's a little resort, low standard, but quite acceptable. It was nice setting. We learned what was then the writing on the wall. When we arrived, there was no power. Electric power had failed, and it continued to not be there for a couple of hours. And this repeated from then on daily. So we had power failures every day, sometimes several times a day, usually for much more than 1 hour, sometimes 5-6 hours. For a DXpedition, that's a bad start. You see, at the first day, we were busy setting up antennas. For this, you don't need power. You need muscles, but no electric power. But then we started to work. So the power became an issue. The hotel was brave enough to rent us a generator. I think it was a generator from 19th century. It was probably stolen from a museum, or maybe it was given away for free by a museum. It was a diesel generator, which sounds great, but it did not deliver stable power. So whenever 2 guys transmitted simultaneously with anything more than, say, 200 watt or so, the voltage dropped, and the modern transceivers don't like that. So then the transceiver shut down, and we had to restart. So it was a bit difficult when doing the power failures, but we worked around that. And the hotel, after some, I would not say complaints, but we explained that this generator is a wonderful piece of equipment, but it does not really serve the purpose well. They bought a brand new one for us, and they only charged us a certain fee for it, which was, I think, very fair.
Okay.
So from then on, I think that was after 1 week, we had power. We had a good generator, which was stable. And according to Murphy's Law, you know what happened. From this day, we had no power failures anymore. So actually, we didn't need the generator anymore. But so that was the first thing. In the suitcases, in the missing suitcases, we had equipment and antennas. We could not set up one antenna. In particular, I think it was the DX Commander, which had added 40 meters. So we built an 40-meter up and outer from existing wires, set that up. So that worked very well. The other antennas that we installed were a spider beam 20 to 10 meter. We had a J-pole antenna for 30 meter, which worked exceptionally well. For 40 meter, then we had, as mentioned, the up and outer with one elevated radial. We had an 80 meter up and outer with two elevated radials. It was an 18-meter spider pole with some extension on the top, which we had also successfully used in Micronesia Victor 6 last year in December. We had also planned, or we also set up the 160-meter antenna. However, that didn't work for a reason which by then I didn't clearly understand. I was in charge of the low-band antennas. I couldn't really figure out, and you know what, it was the prediction was that 160 meter by that time of year would anyway not work well. So I did not spend too much effort. After one day, I gave up. Only later I understood that the elevated radial at its hot end went through leaves, through a bushy area, and that caused some attenuation, and the antenna didn't work well. We couldn't bring it to resonance. So we had to give up 160 meter, our fault, my fault in that case, but 80 meter was quite successful. So these were the antennas. The writing on the wall. The mishaps that then followed were, I think, on the second or third day, the XYL of Olaf. Let me quickly go back to the team. The team was our lead. You have met him last time, Günther, Delta Lima 2 Alpha with Victor Golf. He was participating to the last video conference. Then Ernö, Delta Kilo 2 Alpha Mike, very brilliant CW operator. Myself, Delta Foxtrot 4 Golf Victor. Georg, Delta Lima 4 Sierra Victor Alpha. He had participated to the Tango 2 Charlie DXpedition last year. Also Frank, Delta Lima 1 Kilo Whiskey Kilo, had participated to Tango 2 Charlie last year. Olaf, Delta Juliet 7 Tango Oscar, and he had brought along his wife, Margit. Unfortunately, on the third day, Margit broke her arm near the wrist, both Ella and radius, so we had to visit the local hospital. Local hospital, quote, it was basically a shack with a total area not much larger than my living room, and one doctor who said, well, he confirmed it's broken.
It's broken.
But he said, I'm not in bones. For bones, you have to fly either to Honolulu or Fiji. And remember, there's one flight per week. So we had to wait for another 4 days for the flight. And since then, there was no possibility to return to the island because that was then the flight already 2 weeks later, i.e., when we planned to leave the island, they would have come back. So they decided, that they would go back to Germany and had a surgery. Margit had a surgery then in Germany, and it's all recovering well. I talked to Olaf earlier today. She's fine. Yeah. So that was another mishap. Then 2 more mishaps on the medical area happened. One to me. I had a pretty bad tropical diarrhea, which caused me a lot of trouble. And as a result, I also had a dehydration, which sent me also to the hospital. So we had 3 visits to the hospital, which was not quite nice, but we all survived. So it was still okay. We didn't die. It was nothing really lasting except for the broken arm. So the rest, the operation itself was wonderful.
Were they able to give her a cast or something? I mean, she must have been in pain for a week, right?
Not only cast, but also medication against the pain. So
Okay.
she was on the drugs for a week. It was certainly not pleasant to fly back and also to, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So one of the points that Joe and I always try to make, and you and he are very experienced DXpeditioners, I am not, but one of the points we always try to make with people is when you do these things, you take a risk. And this is the side of the risk that nobody sees. Everybody thinks, oh, you're sitting there for a week and you're making all these QSOs and isn't it fun? And you come back and get awards. But it's kind of like you really are putting yourself at risk, and you'd hate to find out on some island that you're allergic to something that just bit you. I mean, you could be in a world of hurt. So I think these are great examples of what people take for granted, but it's real world when you're going to, leave, your area and head out to the Pacific.
Yeah. And in particular, such a hospital, this is not something which you want to rely upon. It's not the medical service that we all think we would get. It is, but at least we got medical service.
Yes.
I don't want to complain. And the nice thing was it was free,
Okay.
no charge. So, well, then also medical. The hygiene was okay. The tap water there was not drinkable. We were all educated that we must not drink it, not even a little sip, not even during taking a shower, get anything into your mouth. Don't brush your teeth with water. So it did not prevent me from getting a bad diarrhea, but I was the only one. I swear I didn't drink it. I kept my mouth shut during taking a shower, but it still happened.
Yes.
We also had a lot of not tap water, but rainwater. The weather was hot, humid, and a lot of rain, but that was acceptable. Whenever we had electric power, we also had air conditioning in the rooms. So, but as I said, maybe 20% of the time we did not. So, okay, back to amateur radio. The stations that we had 3 manned stations 24/7, a transceiver, a power amplifier, and low power filter and a high power filter for each of these 3 stations. We lost 1 power amplifier due to technical failure that broke. But we had enough spares, so we could still operate 3 stations. The antennas I had told you. Let me see the notes that I took. The QSOs that we collected in the almost 2 weeks, I think it was 13 days. Despite all the difficulties that we had, we achieved more than 40,300 roughly, out of which North America, I sent you the chart, it was almost precisely 1/3 to North America, 1/3 Asia, and 1/3 Europe. That's about the distribution, which I think was quite good. In particular, Europe was strong, surprisingly strong, surprisingly because that goes over the North Pole. So that's the most difficult path. The distribution then over the bands was standard. We're quite proud. I mean, we missed 160, as I explained. We had 80 meter, how many was that? Between 1100 and 1200 QSOs on 80 meter, which
wow,
I thought was quite good.
That is quite good.
In particular, many of these in CW and also many to Europe. That was good. Europe, once again, quite difficult. The pile-ups were nice, very intense. We had SSB, we had CW, we had digital modes. Digital modes tend to run almost automatically, but yeah, 40,000 in 13 days. That is a lot, even with 3 stations manned. So we were quite happy with that. The pile-up is not always intense. I mean, during 24 hours, you have slow periods, you have hot periods, you have periods in which you're quite happy about reaching New Zealand.
Right.
Other times there's a lot of Japanese, other times there's a lot of North America, sometimes there's a lot of Europe. Whenever Europe was open, because that was the most difficult path, we tried to give them preference, but it was not always open. I mean, it was maybe 2 hours a day or so that Europe was open. How did we get there? I explained that we had flown from Frankfurt to Honolulu, then south. The flight from Honolulu to the island, to Kiritimati Island, is roughly 3 hours. The total trip from leaving home to arriving at the hotel was roughly 2 days, 48 hours.
Wow.
And that was quite a trip. But we had 2 stopovers in hotels along the route. Kiribati, the state of Kiribati, the Pacific island state of Kiribati, has 3 island groups. It is the Gilbert Islands, the Phoenix Islands, and the Lion Islands from left to right or from west to east. They are separated by several thousand miles, so it's quite a stretched out state. And the pronunciation Kiribati, or the island, is called Kiritimati. Kiritimati, you hear the similarity to Christmas. So it was obviously in the good old days named Christmas Island by the English-speaking people, and the local people converted that into Kiritimati.
I was curious because I've heard it called Christmas, and I thought, well, that's not the Christmas Island I know.
Yeah.
So I was curious how the two appeared. That's interesting.
Yeah, the other Christmas island, which is more well known, is west of Australia in the Indian Ocean, so quite far away, and that is, I think, the one with the red crabs. That
Okay.
we are probably going there next year.
Oh,
Oh,
we'll
So we
talk
have
about
a-
that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Günther allows me to talk about that. It's still in the planning phase.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it has to be planned long in advance. As usual, there's only 1 flight or maybe 2 flights per week to the islands, and then you have to make sure you are well ahead of the other tourists. Talking about tourists on Christmas Island or Kiritimati, there's not a lot of tourism there, and also not a lot of accommodation, but there is accommodation and there is tourism. All the other tourists, except for us, were fishermen. They were there as anglers. So they fished in the lagoon and they fished outside the lagoon. The lagoon is, if I remember well, the largest lagoon in the world.
Wow.
It's one of the largest, and it has the largest land area of all such lagoons, of all these reefs. So largest landmass of all coral reefs, and one of the largest lagoons. And this island accounts to more than 50% of the surface area of the whole state of Kiribati, consisting of Gilbert, Phoenix, and Lion Islands. The one island, Christmas Island, has 7,400 inhabitants, which is roughly 6% of the Kiribati population, 6% of the population, but more than 50% of the landmass. Their language is Kiribati, which is derived from Gilbertese. It's Gilbertese. It was previously called Gilbertese. And some people there also speak English, but by far not everybody. They are all fluent in Kiribati, in Gilbertese, but not English, but some do. At least it was possible. We had a host in the hotel that was reasonably fluent in English. Very nice young lady. She took very well care of us, and she was our guide for the whole time. The other tourists were, even though they were very interested in what we are doing, they were doing something different. They left the island on boats and went fishing, and they returned in the evening to exchange their adventures, to show the others how big the fish was, and then to have a dinner and then go to sleep to go out fishing next morning. So we were the only guests during the day active in that area, and also at night we were the only active. Everybody else was sleeping.
Wow. So how was the food? You said the water, you couldn't drink the water, but hopefully the food was really good.
Well, we had split opinions. The food, really good, raises the wrong thought. It was acceptable. We always had rice, we always had vegetable, we always had fish and meat. The people in the kitchen, there was one cook. He was a very nice guy. The lady who served the food was a very nice lady. And the food was edible, it was acceptable. It was not the main attraction of the island. I would not return just for the food alone, but the food would not keep me from returning. So
Okay.
it was given the circumstances, it was quite good.
Good. Okay.
The fish, of course, was a local fish. It was either from deep sea, tuna, for example, or mahi, or it was from the lagoon. But I think from the lagoon there is quite some restriction. Also, the fishermen are not allowed to keep the fish and eat it. They have to throw it back, because otherwise the lagoon would be empty even from all the tourists, even though it's not so many tourists. So yeah, food was okay.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. It's very kind of you to phrase it that way.
No, it was not bad. It was not
Okay.
bad.
Yeah.
What is the language like when you say there was Gilbertese, and is it kind of a Japanese derivative, or is it something that you might expect, from Samoa or?
I haven't been to Samoa, and it did not sound anything like, for example, Japanese. Also, since the writing is so different, I heard people speak, but I did not find any similarity. I cannot tell.
Okay.
So whether it is similar to any other Pacific Island languages that are maybe Samoa, may well be.
Okay.
This may be.
Interesting.
Interesting.
The people were immensely friendly and also always willing to help. For example, with the generator, the diesel generator, the museum piece that I mentioned, that was difficult to start, and you needed a real strong man, obviously stronger than I am. And the guys there, they started the generator for us. Now, of course, power failures also happen at night. So what at night? There was always someone sitting there waiting for the next power failure and then to help us start the generator. This was part of their service. So that was wonderful.
Wow.
Very helpful.
So did you have someone on the air 24 hours? I mean, there were three of you, so I imagine all three of you didn't go 24 hours a day, but.
Well, we were six operators. Six operators, and we had 3 stations. So we had 4.5-hour shifts, and the FT8 station was usually running on its own. We also had a 6-meter rhombic antenna. We had for many hours, we were trying to get someone on the hook on 6 meter. On 6 meter, I have it somewhere. This was difficult because it's quite far from anything else, from any other 6 meter. Where are we? Roughly 200 QSOs. Yeah, almost precisely 200 QSOs, at least. all of them in FT8, if I remember well.
Were any of those U.S. contacts? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Eight lucky guys from North America, 3 even more lucky guys from South America, and 170, so almost basically the rest was from Asia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oceania 16.
One of the
Six.
pictures in your slide deck shows a beach with just hundreds of crabs. Was that the predominant guess that you had when you were there? Because I hear about other islands where the mosquitoes are really bad, or lizards, or and the crabs are pretty cute, but I imagine more than a couple would be a nuisance.
Yeah.
They were all very close to the beach.
Okay.
So we were maybe 100 meters, 100 yards from the beach, and they were predominantly some, let's say, 30 meters from the beach. We also had them around in the hotel, but they were not bothering us. It was actually quite nice and they were very shy. It was already difficult to take a picture from them. The dangerous part about them was they dug holes in which they lived, and they probably waited for other animals to fall into the hole, and then they would eat it. You can also step into such a hole. That's difficult for the crab then, but also you can hurt yourself. You can break your legs. So walking there at night, you always had to have a good torch with you, not to step not on a crab, but into her hole.
Yes.
Yeah, but we had mosquitoes, but it was not that bad. We had the crabs. They were not a nuisance. It was actually quite nice to watch them. So the birds were nice. I think they're called frigate birds.
Okay. Yep.
Crickets.
They are stunning flyers, very elegant flyers. And these were abundant. And what else? Some lizards, yes, but so animals was not any problem.
Okay.
Nothing in particular, nothing poisonous.
And just so I don't forget, are you okay if I post your slides so that people
Yes,
can
certainly.
access them? Okay.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I have up on my other screen now the picture of the generator. And when I first saw that, to be quite honest, I thought, I'll bet that was left over from, the Navy Seabees or something from 1945. It is that old looking, but it ran.
Yeah.
Wow.
It ran, and it saved our expedition for hours.
Yeah.
For several days, for hours a day. We had to restrict power, as I said, but gee, man, it worked. When you see, could you also start the video?
I can. Oh yes, I think you'll be able to hear it. My goodness, can you hear that?
It's
No.
rattling and shaking and vibrating and.
Let me. I'll start it again and turn it up. Well,
I
that's
don't
all
hear
right.
it on my side, but I have seen it.
Yes.
I've seen it in real life. So, yeah, when the hotel gave us the generator, they said, "Well, we cannot bring the generator close to your shack because then it would be too loud for the other guests at night." And they didn't have an extension cord that long. We needed 60 meters of extension cord. So they sent us to a hardware store. Believe that on the island there was a hardware store.
Wow.
And I think I bought all the extension cord that they had. It was 60 meter, cost us $300 Australian dollars. But of course, then it helped us to operate. It was good, and we left it as a present on the island.
Now the flip side, the new generator, that's modern state-of-the-art generator. That looks terrific.
Yeah, and that worked. That, of course, that totally eliminated all problems. It was also one that we could start ourselves. We didn't need a strong Polynesian guy, and we could start that. But as I said, according to Murphy, from that day on, when we had the new generator, we had no, or at least almost no power failures anymore.
Wow, very good. The other thing that jumps out, Joe, you'll appreciate this. There's a great supply of Heineken.
Really?
There's a great supply of beer. So if you can't drink the water, that's the next best thing.
Yeah, that's what in the Middle Ages the people also, I think that was probably the reason why they invented wine and beer, because the germs, well, the Hefe, what is Hefe?
Bacteria?
Yeah, the germs that convert sugar into alcohol, what are they called? Yeast.
Yeast.
The yeast also eats up all the other stuff that might be harmful. So beer and wine, if it was before it was poisonous water or dangerous water, after converting it into wine and beer, it is no longer. So that's much healthier than having dangerous water.
Sure.
And we made use of that. We drank a lot of beer. I was more the whiskey drinker. The nice thing on the island was both whiskey and wine, whiskey and beer were relatively cheap. So was other than.
So how often does a supply boat come into the island to replenish food and hardware store and all that?
Good question. I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay.
They have a little harbor where they can unload ships, and I assume it's only an assumption. They come in regularly, so that's not a restriction. It does not have to be flown in. So beer by plane would be more expensive. Beer by ship was quite affordable.
Sure.
You also you have a picture of a group. It looks like a group of students that have like grass skirts on and stuff. Did you visit a school or something, or what was that?
The hotel entertained the guests once a week with presentations by the youngsters living on the island. They had studied either dances, the little girls with their coconut shells, they displayed dances, local dances. The young boys presented us music from clapping with their flat shoes on long tubes. The length of the tube determined the tone that it generated. You can also have a look to the video. It also comes with a sound. That was quite impressive. And I even saw that on a video on another DXpedition to the island some 20 years ago, where they had exactly the same kind of presentation with these music instruments. And the third one was the ladies who did the housekeeping and the cleaning. They also presented local dances, which was also very nice. So, but that was only one evening per week. And since guests changed once a week, they repeated it once a week. It was nice. It was nice to watch, and they also got generous tips, and I think everybody was quite happy.
Good.
Oh, great.
Really interesting.
Maybe you might also be interested in how much does it cost. Obviously the expensive part is to get to the island. So to fly to Honolulu, that's in the order of magnitude, let's say $1,000 or something like that. And then to fly to this little island for another 3 hours is maybe another $1,500 dollars. So, or maybe at least I think it was more than $1,000. Then on the island, it is accommodation and food, and that's maybe then again same amount. So in total, we are looking at, let's say, $4,000 or something like that.
Wow. One of the pictures you have is of a cemetery. I just was curious if it's a cemetery, if there's a special significance to it.
We don't know about the special significance. The cemetery was next to the road which connected our hotel with the airport. The only road, by the way. And so we passed it on 2 occasions when we went to the hotel and we went back to the airport. A part of our group, I think 3 or 4 guys, organized for themselves a little trip on the island. So they visited some other hotel, some other a local market, a farmer's market, and a supermarket, and also drove by the cemetery. I was not part of that group. I was having my radio shift then, and it was the only visit that we paid to the island. The cemetery looked not well in shape. I think once people have died, they don't keep everything in proper order. I think it simply falls apart then over the years. Not well serviced, but that's maybe part of the culture. I would not criticize that.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, really neat, really neat. Now, I have to say, one of your comments on the webpage or a blog, I guess, I thought was terrific, because there's another theme that Joe and I always try to stress, and that is, it's easy for me to sit here in my basement, and if I don't get you on 30 meters or 60 meters, it's like, those guys didn't do a good job. And if I do get you, now I'm off trying to work somebody else. So we sit at home and we don't really think about everything you're going through. And you left a comment basically saying, for those of you that aren't happy, get on a plane and get out here and join us and see how difficult it is. And I love that comment. I thought, that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, so true.
It is nevertheless a big adventure. I love it. But yes, it is stressful. It is, most of us in the group are more or less elderly men. At that age, I'm now 69. At that age, to do this, it becomes not that easy.
Right.
With the climate, with the long travel, with the jet lag, setting up the antennas when you arrive, then the 5-hour shift, alternating shifts, then for 2 weeks, and during every shift, we are doing what we can to work through the pile-up. And sometimes the pile-up are very demanding, and this for 5 hours. It is a lot of fun. I'm not complaining, but yes, it is very energy consuming, and then add to this all the difficulties with electric power, then equipment failing, the weather, thunderstorm coming through, stuff like that. Then with the difficulties with the missing suitcases, with the missing equipment, missing antennas, we had to come up with alternate solutions from the stuff that we had. But still, it's wonderful. But yes, I am always surprised how some amateurs complain that we are not doing a good job. I think under the circumstances, we try to deliver a terrific job. But there is limitations. It comes from either the propagation, the antenna, the equipment, the availability of power, you name it. We have to work under these circumstances, and we love to do, but it's a little bit unfair by other people who are not in the same situation to judge that we are not performing well. I also hate it when people judge on other DXpeditions. You never can really say what is the situation like for the guy on the other end.
Right.
Of course, when he says QRT or QSY and then he's gone, for me, I don't like that. That's bad luck. I would love him to at least work me one more minute, but maybe he usually has good reason to do. All the DXpeditioners are trying to do a great job and striving to deliver QSOs to make everybody happy, to make sure to understand the call sign correct, to make sure not to allow too many dupes, to make sure that everybody, also the little pistols, get a good chance. In the last interview, I mentioned that we are very keen on working weak signals. And I was again surprised how easy it is, also in a relatively big pile up, to identify a weak station. There's big signals, but in between there is also weak signal. And the discipline of the amateurs worldwide is usually very good. So when I called one who was a weak signal, the others were dead silent. So it worked very well. It's really, it's the exception that someone tries calling, and even if and when, it is often that he didn't hear me, give the other call. It's not intentional usually. There is exceptions to that, and these are nasty, but normally it is easy to work also this weaker signals. It's also the discipline was always good. I usually worked on the FT-DX10, where I also see the traffic on my transmit frequency, and there was very few stations calling on my frequency, and those who did it unintentionally did so. So I, after one remark of someone or even of me, they moved their frequency up. So it worked very well. I cannot complain. The guys on the other end in the pile up were great.
I would say for everything you went through, averaging 3,000 QSOs a day for a total of 40,000 is terrific. So well done to you and the team. Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. You mentioned that a suitcase or two that had been lost and showed up a week later, you had to go and buy extension cords. And all the trips I've been on, packing is always a problem. And do you put everything in one suitcase, or do you spread it out into multiple cases? So if you had to pack over, would you make any changes since you needed extension cord and you lost some of the antenna equipment for a week? What would you do different, if anything?
I would carefully, I would spend some thoughts on identifying critical suitcases. If we lose this suitcase, that will kill all the expedition, because it contains, for example, all the power supplies or whatever, or all the wires or all the coax cables. So the wires, power supplies, coax cables, transceivers, all this must be spread out so that you not lose all of them in one suitcase. This we normally do. But of course, if 2 suitcases out of 10 are missing, it is not only underwear that is missing. Yeah. Underwear, of course, was also missing. We had a speed, not speed dating, but a speed visit to a supermarket or to Walmart or something like that in Honolulu in the morning, because we only had 1 hour to replace all the stuff that the pants, the t-shirts, underwear, toothbrush, stuff like that, which was also in the 2 suitcases. It was not all antennas and equipment, but also other stuff. But that worked well. The suitcase came with the next available flight, i.e. 1 week later. Yeah. But this was then the flight with which the other guys left. It was one of their suitcases. So they did not get their suitcase in time. Only after they had left did the suitcase arrive. So they got it then back in Germany. Yeah, these islands are a bit difficult to reach. Yeah, but your question was, would we do something differently? I think not really, but I would intentionally then ask myself the question, what do we have in these suitcases? And if this one particular suitcase gets lost, is this particularly bad? And then maybe rearrange. The bigger problem was that we get the weight of the suitcases. There's 50-pound allowance per suitcase with the airlines, and so we had to reshuffle luggage between the suitcases so that we exploited the 50 pounds per suitcase to the best we could, and so we did not waste anything. Still, we had to pay for, I think, 2 extra suitcases.
Sure.
But anyway.
So what about the antennas? You know, that's the most important, I always thought the most important part of the whole operation. So would you take the same antennas back again?
The spider beam from 20 to 10 meter that's a big animal, heavy. Also a lot of work to set it up. This cannot be done with a small DXpedition, but we were 6 operators, 7 people traveling. So this probably, if we have such a big DXpedition, we would probably take that along again. In a smaller DXpedition, for example, 4 people, this is too big, it's just too heavy, too bulky. Then we go with verticals like the DX Commander, which goes from 40 to 10, which is also very good, in particular when it's close to salt water. But salt water alone is not enough. It must be salt water in the direction of your most wanted propagation. And this was not the case. So we had the salt water in the wrong direction. So it did not help. But still, the verticals worked very well. We had the 40-meter vertical, the 30-meter J-pole, and the 80-meter vertical. I was in particular very happy, despite the unfavorable time of year, on the performance of the 80-meter antenna, which brought us surprising number of 80-meter QSOs. And the people on the other side were very happy.
Sure. So
yeah, I heard you on 80. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bill. Did you leave any equipment, not necessarily radios, but did you leave anything back on the island for the locals? You know, some of the trips I've been on, Elmar, we would leave coax back because we would have a mile of coax, and that is a lot of weight. So things like that we would leave for the next DXpedition.
We left for the people on the hotel. For the hotel, we left the 60-meter power cord extension, the power extension cord, because for the hotel this was valuable. It was high quality. It was not only high price but also high quality. That was a good piece of equipment. We did not leave anything for other DXpeditions because there was no necessity. We had no weight limit because we had brought in the weight, and we had not gained weight ourselves, but the suitcases had still the same weight. So we brought everything back. We did not leave anything back for other DXpeditions. And the expeditions are not that frequent in this hotel. I think maybe once every 2 years or so.
So would you and the team go back? Anytime.
Was great. It was great.
Good.
And T32, I look at it from the European point of view. T32 is difficult to reach, so it is quite sought after. But also Micronesia, the December DXpedition, I would at any time go back. The advantage that Micronesia Victor 6 had in that resort or in that hotel, we had plenty of space for antennas, whereas in Kiribati, the antenna space was quite limited. So we had to get along with much less space, which then also led to the problem with the 160-meter antenna that had to somehow squeeze its elevated radial somewhere, and there was bushes and trees and branches in the way, and that didn't work then. And we had no alternative place to put it up. It was limited space.
Sure.
But yes, I would come back anytime. It's a nice location. Usually the guys going on the expeditions, they check out who was there previously, and then they get in touch with them. and ask for recommendation. Which hotel did you go? Was it good? Did you have enough space to set up the antennas, etc., etc.? So ask for advice, and then that saves a lot of effort in the planning phase.
Yes.
We have already been approached for Micronesia and also Kiribati by others who are interested in going there. And we, before we went in the planning phase, asked others for advice.
Sure, sure.
It goes as far as which room were you at? What was the room number? Was that a good room, or can you name a better one? So it's always good to take note of the room number, which is best suited for the shack, because, for example, it is not directly next to other tourists' rooms, or it is has access for the coax to a large space where the antennas are.
So that brings up another question. Then I'll turn it back over to Bill.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Bill. So did you have one room for the radio operation, and then other rooms for your sleeping?
Yes.
Okay.
We had one room for the shack, one room for the couple, one room for two guys, two couple, and I had one smaller single room. I think we had 4 or 5 rooms, and the shack was a separate room, and it was a separate shack, a little hut. Bill, you see, there's one. There's a nice image of the shack with the antenna in front of it. And I think it's labeled. It says our shack.
Yeah, it's very nice, and looks like a very nice shack, actually.
Yeah,
because one of your early pictures, there's some buildings that look like they haven't been attended to in 40 years. And right away I thought, oh, what are you getting into? But yes.
Yeah, that was along the road between the airport and the hotel.
Okay.
It did not belong to the hotel. Yeah, the standard of living there, Kiribati, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. The standard of living is not very high, but people are friendly, they are happy. The kids go to school, they have a lot of schools, they have also a lot of churches, and they have food on the island, they have water on the island, I mean, purified water. They have, I think the life that they are having is, I thought it was a happy life, but it's a poor life. And the buildings in which they live are more very simple standard, very simple.
Yeah.
So do you remember what the club log ranking was before your DXpedition? I'm thinking it was in the upper 60s.
I think you're right.
And it's at 119 now. So you knocked it down significantly.
Sorry, guys. Sorry for the next ones. Yeah, I mean, during solar maximum, there's a lot of people going out, if not when then, if not now, when then. So there's a lot of the expedition activity. Then for the next 11 years, it has time to recover from 116 back into the 60s.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
It also seems like everyone's going to Tuvalu right now. I mean, there's been a couple there at the end of last year. There's another one coming up, and
yeah.
So
and Wolf, Delta Lima 7 Victor Echo Echo, just this week announced his next DXpedition to Nauru, which is going to take place in October. Nauru is also great. I envy these guys. Olaf, by the way, the guy who participated to our DXpedition, whose wife then broke her arm, he will be part of the team in Nauru.
Okay.
Charlie 2.
Charlie 2. Okay.
Yes.
Well, when you get ready and you've announced your next DXpedition, let me know, because we'd like to have you back on and talk about that one.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. No, it will be a good excuse for a next interview.
Yes, that's right. And we can do the ahead of time and then after the fact. So it sounds like you guys did a terrific job, a professional job. The whole ham community has to be thrilled with it. So congratulations to you and the team.
For sure.
Just a great. And Joe, did you have a question?
Well, if if you went back, like on the trip that you're planning, would you go in late fall, October, November, December, because of 80 and 160? So you had better propagation?
If we have freedom of planning, then we would do. But normally, the boundary conditions are such that we don't have this freedom. The next DXpedition was originally planned for March, but we shifted it to February for climatic reasons, because on the island that is our next target, March is the very wet season. February is also wet, but March is very wet, so we advanced it from March to February. February will also be better for low bands.
Yes.
But the primary reason was the climate, and in the back of my brain also then the low bands. But usually we have to go when the team can go, when the family allows them to go, when the job allows them to do. We all have some boundary conditions that have to be observed as well.
Sure.
But if there was not such boundary conditions, then I would, of course, select the best time for the target area. The target area is usually that part of the world where it is most difficult for the other guys to catch us. For example, with Kiribati for T32, this was without any doubt Europe. So Europe was the main target area, because everybody else in the world had T32, but for Europe it is our next islands that we are targeting. There, the main target area will be the east coast of North America, because they will have the most difficult propagation path.
Sure.
And I think I slipped my mouth previously. Yeah, but we talk about that
Next time.
next time.
Yes, we certainly will.
Well, certainly, thank you for participating today. It's been very interesting, very educational, and I'm sure this podcast will go over very, very good. And certainly a lot of luck to you and your team and your future planning.
Thank you, Joe. Very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Yes,
Nice.
Joe's ready to start packing his suitcase and headed back to Swains, I'll tell you.
I'm just too old for all this. Oh, I would love to go. Oh, believe me. Yeah, this is my thing, but
one of the Swains participants will be with our team again next year in February.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because
my good friend Rainer.
I had talked to them before they went to Swains, because I had been there, and like you said, they wanted to know all about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, Swains was also great. That was a great expedition.
Yes.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it was.
Bill, feel free to make use of the PowerPoint presentations, and also feel free to take it apart, take out the pictures. If you want to have any of the pictures in higher resolution, send me a note. I will send everything to you, so that you have some background stuff for your presentation. And please give me the link so that I can see what you made of it.
I will certainly do that, and I appreciate you offering that. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. I'm excited, and you guys really did a great job. My hat's off to you. And I think a lot of people would run into those challenges, and it's like, oh, and you guys just said, okay, we got to get past it. What do we do? So
it's a lot of fun. It is fun. I can swear. Sometimes difficult, always strenuous, costs some money, but it is so much fun to sit there and work the pile-ups. Is wonderful. So everybody listening to that, is it a podcast or is it what? Is it not a podcast?
It'll be podcast and YouTube. So I'll do both.
Okay, and YouTube. So everybody who is listening or watching that, I can only encourage everybody to try this. It is a wonderful experience. And once again, I said that in the last interview, I became part of the team by simply asking in the German DX club, I would be interested to join. Would someone be interested in me? I'm a good CW operator. I have time. I have the money to fund my trip. And next day I was booked to Micronesia, and the same
Really?
team. And the same team then I was then part in Kiribati, T32. So it's actually, you just have to sit on the computer, ask the next available DX club, and they are usually very helpful, and they want
Yes.
to lubricate that and help you to get along.
Yes.
Bill, thanks for you're also doing a great job with your podcast and the YouTube stuff. I like that. It's very
Good, thank
nice.
you. And we try to get current and great DXers like yourself, and that's what makes it work. So
Yes.
thank you so much, and I hope to hear from you in a couple months when you're ready to tell us what's going on, and we'll follow up then.
Yeah.
See you then. I look forward to it. It will
Okay,
be exciting again,
Yeah,
and in
thank you.
particular interesting for North America.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm excited. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Great.
Have a
Bill and
have
Joe,
a
it was
great
great
week.
talking to you.
Yes. Have a great week.
You too. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you found that as fun and interesting as I did. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the DX Mentor. I would also like to thank our sponsors, ICOM America, the Daily DX, DX Engineering, and the Southwest Ohio DX Association. You won't find anyone more committed to DX than these sponsors. I would especially like to thank our guests today, Elmar, DF4GV, and Joe, WAGEX. I would love to have your feedback, answer your questions, and provide help with any DX or amateur-related issues that you may have. If you need clarification on something or you just have a question, drop me a note at thedxmentor@gmail.com. You can also send me an email if you've achieved an all-time new one, received recognition, or you have a DX event that you would like us to mention. We'd be happy to do that. If you're enjoying these DX Mentor episodes, please hit the subscribe button. You can also click like if you found this one particularly interesting. 7-3 for this episode, and thanks to my XYL Karen for her love and support. I'll see you in the pile-ups.